Okay, it's going to notify me here shortly. I'm thinking it's going to notify me here shortly.
Says it's streaming live on YouTube.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I think we're streaming live on YouTube. It's going to notify me here shortly. Oh, it sure is. And I'm thinking it's going to notify me here shortly. Sorry, guys. I am
reverbing.
There we go. I've got that fixed. Hello, everybody. It certainly is good to see you tonight. It's good to be back. We had to work last week, didn't get to be here, but we're certainly glad to be here tonight. Looking forward to what Terry has cooked up for us tonight. And we're glad to have everybody here in the Zoom room. We'll have Terry maybe talk to them here just shortly. But it's good to have you listening to Power Faith Radio tonight. You can come on over to our Facebook page, A Simple Walk, and there you'll find the links to come into the Zoom room. And while you're over there, go ahead and subscribe to that Facebook page, and you'll get notified every time we do an event. And also, we're streaming live on YouTube. Come on in, join us there. While you're there, you can go ahead and hit that notification bell. No, first subscribe, then hit that notification bell, and you'll be notified every time a new video goes up. And you can send us an email. Just send that email to outreachnoah@gmail.com. Terry, take it away.
Scotty, it's cold down here in Southeast Tennessee.
It's cold up here, too. My blower fan went out on my work vehicle, and I also drive that home. And so, as you can see, when my hair gets cold, I can't do anything with it.
Yeah, no, it just, single digit temperatures just doesn't work well down here.
Yeah.
I telling people who work today, I said, it's cold when your teeth chatter before you put them in.
Somebody said it was so. No, I better not tell that. That's an attorney joke.
No, an attorney joke. Anyhow, we hope you're warm and toasty wherever you're at. Probably inside warm and toasty, we hope. It's supposed to hit the 40s here. I think 40 actually tomorrow. We've had a real bad cold snap that's run down through here, but we're getting through it. And of course, our brothers and sisters down in Georgia and New Orleans, well, they got a little bit of a taste of winter, I hear. 10 inches in Pensacola doesn't sound right either.
and Veronica's over on the
yeah, she's over at over at Myrtle Beach, and they've got snow on the beach. That sounds like a mixed drink. Anyhow, greetings, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're at in the world. We know Scotty's little radio over there goes all over the place.
Yep.
And Brazil and places like that. Scotty, you got any?
I just looked over here, see if we had some new folks listening. My little world's not working. I don't know. My internet is not. We've been having issues with the internet here lately.
It's cold.
Yeah, it's cold. So all my features aren't working. And if they are working, they're working slow. But we got some folks listening in Hawaii tonight. So good to have y'all. Now, that could have been 2 hours ago. I don't know, because it's not refreshing. So.
Well, it's kind of like that little meme I seen today with the minion all bundled up and said, the best way to handle the cold is to put so much clothes on you can't get out the door to go in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty good advice. So anyhow, greetings, everyone. Thank you again for joining us here at Outreach Noah. We know we've been off again last week. Scotty had some duties that he had to take care of, but he's back here tonight with us. Got the engine room up and going and warmed up, and we're headed out into the wild blue yonder, I guess, aren't we, Scotty?
I reckon so.
Of course, tonight we have Ronald and Veronica and Scotty, and of course there's Fred. Should be Fred on iPhone 7, I believe. Is Fred up in Kentucky, and Bob join us here in the Zoom room. And like Scotty has said, if you want to join us in the Zoom room, just go over to the Simple Walk. Scotty's got the links posted there to be able to come in. Just click it and come on into the room. We'll let you in. You don't have to have your camera on, but you're welcome to come and join us. And of course, we want to greet everyone, not only from Power Faith Radio, also the YouTube channel as well, and those who are watching us later as they watch the recording. Tonight, we're going to finish up the little series, with freedom responsibility is born. We're going to be covering that. We're going to cover the fourth part tonight, the entire Bible with the from the writings of Rabbi Jonathan Sacks in his book To Heal a Fractured World. We're going to continue that little series tonight, God willing. Might be go a little long. This little part's a little longer than it was on the last week, but we'll see how it goes, Scotty.
All right.
Are you about ready?
I am ready. I'm having to put my glasses on. I think it's got something to do with my age. I'm not for sure.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm ready. We appreciate everybody who has participated in our charity time, our tzedakah time, and we do our best to try to get names. Sometimes we'll scour the Facebook and other social media platforms, and then we'll mention somebody, and they'll tell us about other people. So anyway, we thank everybody for participating. So let's get started, and that way we can give Terry plenty of time. As always, we start off with Pesach and Shira Shirbo from Sfat, Israel. That's Terry and I's main teacher. And then Rabbi Michael Skobach. Has anybody heard how he's doing? Is he doing okay? Anybody heard?
Well, he's doing his lectures again at the moment on
Okay.
this that we're on, so I think he might be okay.
Okay. Well, we'll keep him on there for a little bit longer. Also, Troy Milligan and his family is on our tzedakah list tonight. Also, D. Hall is on our tzedakah list tonight. We also have Nadine Akins still on our tzedakah list. I still felt like keeping Jeremy Kibbe on our tzedakah list tonight. Also, William and Tina Lyons is on our tzedakah list tonight. We're giving some tzedakah for them. And Chrissy Seaton, we still have her on our tzedakah list. Have you heard of anything from Chrissy? Ronald, how's she doing?
She's doing very well. I've had a fair bit of contact with her over the last week. Yeah, she's feeling on top of the world, and she's going to start making videos for my Noah Hyde Family YouTube channel again. So she said she's feeling pretty much on top of the world at the present.
Great. Also, Stefan Dunshire, I think I pronounced that correctly, is on our tzedakah list tonight. And since we're talking to you, Ronald, we got you next on the list along with your sister. Tell us about you and your sister, Ronald.
Yeah, I'm doing fine. Stephen Dunshire is doing fine. We can probably remove him.
Okay.
He's back to working full time, and so
right.
Yeah.
Great.
My sister, she's had some injections, and I'm not sure what they are, but they seem to be having some helpful effect while they're still investigating what's going on. So she's
right.
It's not as bad as it was, but it's still not good. So she has some relief.
Great. All right. We'll keep you both on our tzedakah list. Also, Thomas. Let's remember Thomas Schaus. He's in our tzedakah list. And somebody always sends in $1 for Thomas, as well as Amuela. Let's remember Amuela on our tzedakah list tonight. And Veronica, they include you on this tzedakah time. And so we're happy to give tzedakah for you. And then Marshall Warwick. How's he doing, Ronald? Have you got to talk to him?
Contact with him, but he's been a little bit active lately online, so I think he's okay at the moment.
Okay. Also, we're giving tzedakah tonight for Wendell and Mary Parsons. I think his work has kind of moved him around a little bit. And then also Fred Lee Rawls, we have him. I think he's recovering pretty good. It's good to see him tonight in our class. And then Janice Brandon. Did I get that right? Who sent me that?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, she's fine in New Zealand. Yeah, I got a very short text from her yesterday. She had her surgery and all went well. And so I haven't heard back from her. I sent her a message this morning, but she's probably quite weary from the surgery and sleeping a bit. But just a short one to say that the surgery all went well.
Okay, good deal. And then also Rachel Stewart, if I got that correctly. That's Fred's sister, I believe. We're giving tzedakah for her tonight. And then on our blessed memory tzedakah list tonight, we have Rodney White. Rodney White. His wife contacted me yesterday, and this is a year of his passing, and so she wanted us to ask if we would give a charity for his merit. And she catches it on YouTube. She doesn't, not able to watch it live, but she watches us on YouTube, and she lives a couple of blocks from me. So we get to see her from time to time and discuss things with her. So we're happy to do that. Would you help us pray tonight? Hear our voice, Adonai, our God, Father of mercy. Have compassion on us and accept our prayers with compassion and favor. For we know that you are a God who hears our prayers and our supplications. You are our King. Do not send us away empty-handed. Favor us and answer us and listen to our prayers. Amen. All right, Terry, I'm going to bring you up on speaker view, and we're just going to turn it over to you tonight.
My mic sound okay tonight? You're muted, Scotty.
Veronica just mentioned to me Pamela Steffi, and I thought I had her on there, Veronica. Oh, I did. I put my finger down and I moved her over to the wrong place. Pamela Steffi. I did pronounce that correctly, right?
Yes, I think so.
We're going to give tzedakah for her right now. Okay, Terry. Sorry about that, Veronica. Right. I got her on my list, and again, there's a reason I'm wearing these glasses. So, okay. All right, Terry, go right ahead.
Okay. All right, again, greetings everyone tonight. Like I said, we're going to continue on our fourth, as Rabbi Sacks calls it, the fourth act here in the book of Genesis, discussing the issue of responsibility. And tonight we're talking about the Tower of Babel. This was an interesting little study. I actually learned quite a bit from this study that I hadn't known about the Tower of Babel, especially in relation to the subjects that we've been covering the last few weeks. So I'm going to pick up here. It's actually page 142 in his book, To Heal a Fractured World. He says, Act 4, the Tower of Babel, is a text of extraordinary compactness. The story takes only a mere 9 verses and is packed with wordplay and literary allusion, mostly lost in translation. And that's an important thing. There's so much that we learn about the Hebrew scriptures that pertain especially to us in the nations and even to Israel that is lost in translation. We also find a lot of inaccurate interpretations because they make their some of their doctrines, their beliefs, their faiths made on translation, where there are things that the scriptures actually tell us, but it's lost in translation. And we'll see that as we continue not only through this, but some other studies that we're going to be doing in the future. He goes on and says, 2 of the key words, for example, are brick, the first man-made building material, and confuse, God's act of confounding the language of the builders so that the project is never completed. Now, this is going to be very similar to what we learned about Noah. It says here, the 2 Hebrew words are mirror images of one another. The Hebrew word for brick, and I'm just going to tell you the Hebrew letters, is Lamed Vav Nun, 3 letters. for the Hebrew word for confuse is the mirror opposite. Nun, vav, lav, lamed. Nun, vav, lamed. That's like what we learned about with Noach. Noach, his name is spelled with 2 letters, Nun Het. Nun Het. So when the mirror of Noah's name is Het Nun, which is the word for grace or favor. So we have Noach, which means comfort, and his reverse, when you reverse the letters of his name, is grace or favor. So here we have the same situation in this story, brick and confuse. The same 3 Hebrew letters, but in mirrored reversed order. The reversal of the letters mirror God's inversion of the builder's plan. They want to build the city so that they would not be scattered over the face of the earth. But the result was that they were scattered over the face of the earth. They sought to make a name. It says they sought to make a name for ourselves, and they succeeded. But that name they made for themselves was Babel. Babel became a symbol not of creation, but of confusion. Wordplay is essential also to understand what their sin was, which is not stated explicitly in the text. The narrative begins and ends with the phrase containing the word haaretz, the earth. It begins, the whole earth had one language, and it ends, from there, the Creator scattered them over the face of the whole earth. Within this frame, there is a continuous phonemic play on the words sham, which is the Hebrew word for there, shem, which is the Hebrew word for name, and Shemaim, the Hebrew word for heaven. And Shem together appear 7 times. Sham and Shem together appears 7 times within these 9 verses. The word Shemaim, heaven, appears at the key point of the narrative. Let us build a city with the tower that reaches heaven. Babel, Rabbi Sacks says, Babel is a story about the relationship between heaven and earth. Specifically, it echoes the first verse of the Hebrew Scriptures. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Babel is what happens when human beings, in full exercise of their creative power, attempt to build a cosmopolis, the city as man-made universe in which they, not God, rule. Babel is what happens when human beings, in their full exercise of the creative power, attempts to build a cosmopolis or a city as man-made universe in which they rule, but God doesn't. Then he brings in, he says, once again, Nietzsche comes to the mind. His madman who announces the death of God adds, must we not ourselves become God simply to seem worthy of it? One of the key words of the first chapter of Genesis in the root, Beit Dalet Lamed, to distinguish, to separate, to impose or respect order. It occurs 5 times in the course of the chapter. The universe that God creates is a place of careful, calibrated harmony. Each object and life form in its appropriate domain. That's an important principle to understand too. From the beginning, each object and life form in its appropriate domain. One word is repeated at each stage, good. It appears 7 times in the chapter. At the end of creation, immediately prior to the Sabbath, God saw all that he had made, and behold, it was very good. Meaning each thing was good in itself and very good in relation to all else. The goodness of the world in Genesis 1 is ontological and ecological. It depends on respect for boundaries, in a word, order. It depends on order. It depends on the respect of boundaries. And we learned that, as I've mentioned many times over the last couple of years in Genesis, where God gives us the commandment, or gave Adam the commandment in Genesis 2:16 and 17. And with that commandment there, he was establishing boundaries. That's yours. This is mine. We've discussed that many times, and we will again, even more in the future. The opposite of order is Babel, or confusion. The builders of the tower defied the principle stated in the book of Psalms. The heavens are the heavens. The heavens are the heavens of the Lord. The earth he has given to his children of mankind. Psalms 115:16. The Hebrew word avera, like its English equivalent, transgression, means straying across a boundary, entering into forbidden territory. Hebrew word avera means to stray across a boundary into forbidden territory. A sin is an act in the wrong place. A sin is an act in the wrong place. A failure to honor boundaries and constraints that form the deep structure of the universe. It is a failure to engage, and he uses the word havdalah, which means to separate. He says a failure to engage. The cognitive act of knowing the difference between one thing and another. Like at Havdalah, they differentiate the week, the end of a week and the beginning of a week, in night and day. It is the cognitive act of knowing the difference between one thing and another and what belongs where. See, this is so important for us to learn, as those of us in the nations, as we're learning what we're responsible for before God, is knowing what belongs where. Sometimes there are confusions that are made in thinking that some things that are Jewish belongs here, but it doesn't. And some things of the nations belongs over there, and it doesn't. That's why the Creator separated in Israel, said not to learn the ways of the nations, because there are things here that doesn't belong to them in their life. And then there are things that's in their life that doesn't belong to us. There is a separation. There are boundaries that the Creator has given us. In a ceremony of great beauty, the Jews start the week as the Sabbath ends with the ceremony known as Havdalah. God invites us, his partners in the work of creation, to begin each 7-day cycle as he did, by making a distinction. Aspiring to make their home in heaven, the builders of Babel failed to honor the distinction between man and God. Let me read that again. Aspiring to make their home in heaven, the builders of Babel failed to honor the distinction between man and God. Their punishment precisely fits its crime. By creating disorder, they inherit disorder. An ability to communicate with one another and thus engage in a collaborative activity on which all human achievement depends. By dishonoring language, God creates the world with words because words create order, classifying and labeling distinctions. Their language is dishonored. They believe that their tower will reach heaven, the actual ziggurat at Babylon, to which the story refers, was a 7-story structure some 300 feet high. In a pointed touch of irony, the text says that God had to come down to see it. To the builders, it looked tall, but to God, it seemed insignificant. There is humor here, as Rabbi Sacks says. God laughs at man's hubris. By aspiring to reach heaven by technical prowess rather than moral conduct. Think of that. Think about what's going on in our generation right now, around the world. Aspiring to reach heaven by technical prowess rather than moral conduct. The builders of Babel discovered that not only do we fail to reach heaven, but we lose our compact nature, our unity here on earth. Babel is a profound commentary on the human desire to take the place of God. Babel, we read that again. Babel is a profound commentary on the human desire to take the place of God. The word responsibility comes from the word response. It implies the existence of an other who has legitimate claims on my conduct. For or to who I am accountable. The Hebrew equivalent, akarat, derived from the word akar, meaning an other. Responsibility is instinctively relational. The ethical is never private. In biblical terms, it is a matter of covenant between two parties, God and humanity, both of whom enter into certain undertakings toward the other. Rabbi Sacks goes on and he says, Richard Neighbor defines the biblical ethic of responsibility as the principle God is acting in all actions upon you. So respond to all actions upon you as to respond to his action. Babel represents the failure of ontological responsibility, the idea that we are accountable to something or someone beyond ourselves. Fired by their technological breakthrough, the discovery of man-made building materials that made tall, multi-storied buildings possible, the men on the plain of Shinar attempted to construct a self-sufficient universe, an artificial holy mountain in which man is accountable only unto himself. There is no other beyond nature to whom we are answerable to, and by to whom we are judged. Writing of later, the city, the Athens of Socrates and Plato, Lord Acton describes the inevitable self-destruction that followed in the wake of such an undertaking. He says, They became the only people of antiquity that grew great by democratic institutions. But the possession of unlimited power, which corrodes the conscience, hardens the heart, confounds the understanding of the monarchs, exercised its demoralization influence on the illustrious democracy of Athens. It is bad to be oppressed by a minority, but it is worse to be oppressed by a majority. The philosophy that was then in the ascendant taught them that there is no law superior to that of the state. The lawgiver is above the law. It followed that the sovereign people had a right to do whatever was within its power and was bound by no rule of right or wrong, but its own judgment of expediency. The result was the emancipated people of Athens became a tyrant. Responsibility is responsibility, the accountability to an authority beyond us in the here and the now. The alternative from Babel to Nazi Germany and Soviet communism is the story of human blood shed on the altar dedicated to the greater glory of humankind. Scotty, that's the end of the first section of this section. Any discussion that we want? I know there's a lot covered there.
Nope, everything's good. Keep right on going. I do have a question that somebody asked last week. No, the week before last. And you had mentioned where it was going, but I'm going to wait on that question because I want you to get another area in.
Are we gathering what we're learning here about the Tower of Babel?
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Babel is the story about the relationship between heaven and earth. Rabbi Sacks continues. He says, the first 11 chapters of Genesis are not mere series of historical narratives. They are a highly structured exploration of responsibility. See, that's what this life for us of the nations is all about when we begin to learn the laws of Noah that God, gave from Adam to Noah, and that God reaffirmed with Moses at Mount Sinai. And the authority of them now falls within the Torah, within Moses, our teacher. And that's where the authority and that God has demanded upon us to live a certain life. And these laws all discuss in their totality our responsibility as human beings. It's only part of it, but it's the major part of what we are to be doing and our part of God's creation. He has Israel, he has the nations. And our laws are highly structured explorations of responsibility when you think about it. They begin with two stories of individuals, Adam and Eve, and then Cain. Followed by two stories about societies. The generation of the flood and the builders of Babel. The first and the last, the tree of knowledge, the first and the last, the tree of knowledge, the tower, are about the failure to honor boundaries between permitted and forbidden, heaven and earth. The inner two are about violence and individual collective. I'll read that again because this is very important. They begin with two stories about individuals, Adam and Eve, and then Cain. Individuals. followed by two stories of societies, the generation of the flood and the builders of Babel. The first and last, the tree of knowledge and the tower, are about the failure to honor boundaries between that which is permitted and that which is forbidden, and in heaven and earth. The inner two are about violence, individual, then collective. They constitute a development of psychology of the moral sense. First, we discover personal responsibility, our freedom to choose. Then we acquire moral responsibility, the knowledge that choice has limits. Not everything we can do may we do. Later, we learn collective responsibility. We are part of a family, a community, and a society, and we have a share in its innocence or guilt. Later still, we realize that the society itself is subject to a higher law. There are moral limits to power. All of this preclude to the appearance of Abraham, who does not emerge in a vacuum. His life is a culmination of all that has gone before. The first words of God, leave your land, your birthplace, and your father's house, are called to personal responsibility. Abraham is commanded to relinquish everything that leads human beings to see their acts not as their own. The call to Abraham is the counter commentary to the three great determinants of the modern world. Karl Marx held that behavior is determined by structure of power in society, among them ownership of land. Therefore, God said to Abraham, leave your land. Spinoza believed the human conduct is given by instinct, and we acquire it at birth, genetic determinism. Therefore, God said, leave your birthplace. Freud held that we are shaped by the early experiences of childhood. Therefore, God said, leave your father's house. Abraham is a refutation of determinism. There are structures of power, but we can stand outside of them. There are genetic influences on our behavior, but we can master them. We are shaped by our parents, but we can go beyond them. Abraham's journey is as much of a psychological as geographical. Like the Israelites in Moses' day, he is traveling to freedom. Abraham exercises moral responsibility by entering into battle in Genesis 14 to rescue not his brother, but his brother's son, Lot. He is his brother's keeper. He scales the heights of collective responsibility when he prays for the inhabitants of Sodom, even though he knows or suspects that for the most part they are all wicked. He reaches ontological responsibility in the trial of the binding of Isaac by recognizing the primacy of the divine word over human emotion and aspiration. In each case, Abraham responds, and in doing so, points the way beyond the failure of the previous generations. It is now clear why the biblical story does not begin with Abraham. Talking about God didn't begin the Torah with Abraham. Responsibility is not a given of the human situation. Responsibility is not a given of the human situation. On the contrary, it is all too easy to deny it. It wasn't my fault, Adam. I don't see why I shouldn't do what I wish, not what I ought, Cain. I am responsible for myself and not others, Noah. We are answerable to no one but ourselves, Babel. The journey to responsibility is long, and there are many temptations to stop us short of the final destination. But in the end, there is no real alternative if we are to live our full humanity. Adam loses paradise. Cain is condemned to wander. Noah declines into drunkenness. Babel is left unbuilt. Responsibility is the conduct of our freedom. And we cannot abdicate it without losing much else besides. Responsibility is the condition of our freedom. But the story does not end there. And he goes on, he's talking about what he's going to be talking on in the rest of the book and also the rest of the Torah, where he talks about if Abraham is the culmination, what more is there to say? The answer is that humanity is not comprised of individuals alone. We cannot live alone, nor can we create alone. We are a social animal. That is why God's covenant with Abraham must succeed by another and more extensive order. Only a nation can build a society, and only a society can bring the divine presence into a public square. Its economy and its politics is shared life and the collective history. Genesis is about individuals. In the first chapter of Exodus, we encounter the first time the connection with Abraham's children to the word in Hebrew, or people. The question, which is the rest of the Torah, is the answer. How does a people or a nation acquire responsibility? And those there, even though from certain part of Genesis on forward to the rest of the Torah is strictly about Israel, which all of it's about Israel, but it's strictly about the formation of Israel, is about a nation and a people acquiring responsibility. And God calls Israel the light of the nations. And what is the light of the nations teaching us that's in the nations is that we have a human responsibility that we are supposed to be living by, that we have human responsibility. We have national responsibility. And they are the light to show us through what God raised them up to be. We don't copy everything they do because there's so much there that God just gave Israel alone. But the principles of responsibility between you as an individual, you among your family and your neighbors, and you among your society and your society among your nation, they are the light of the nations to teach us true responsibility that the Creator intended from the get-go. From Genesis 2:16, when God told Adam and Eve, you have all the trees of the garden to eat, but this one is mine. It began right there. The sages of Israel teaches us that Genesis 2:16 is the beginning of man's moral training in responsibility. Go ahead, Scotty.
John hit on my buttons here.
I did get through that. It was kind of, I thought it was a little lengthy, but did get through that. I thought the aspect of responsibility and the subject of the Tower of Babel was very, very interesting.
I think that's well, I'm gonna get myself in trouble by this, Terry, but we live in an age where I can now blame somebody else for all of my sins.
Right.
Should I define that?
Yeah, people want to blame the great tempter, but that's what he does. He tempts, but we make the decision to follow through with the action.
Yeah, yeah.
What was it? What was it said that Rabbi Sacks said here? Let me see if I can find it. Go ahead, Scotty, while I look for that.
I do have a question somebody had brought up. They had read, and they asked me a question week before last. And
okay, go ahead.
So, was Abraham alive during the time of the Tower of Babel?
I hadn't read.
Yeah. See, Bob.
Yeah, go ahead. Bob does that because I know he's gone a little bit further now. I think because I'm pretty sure he was, because the time, and I've got a really interesting book here. Let me see if this is the one I'm thinking about. Because he's got some teachings on the Tower of Babel that was really, really, or not just teachings, writings. I'm going to say it's more writings. Let me see if this is the one. I've got two of Jim Long's books. Yeah, he's got some very interesting in this book, The Blood Brother, A History of Israel's Enemy, that Jim Long wrote, talks about the Tower of Babel. And I think it's in this book here. He shows like his father, I think, Don might correct me on this. It's been a long time since I've been about 4 or 5 years since I've read this. His father owned the land. I think Tarek owned the land. And if I remember right, Jim chases all that down, and the land of Turkey actually comes from Tarek's name that owned it. So he's even got some interesting information on here that the fall of the tower, it's debris. He talks about the debris field in here, how great that was. It was really interesting. But Jim talks a lot about that. And yes, so I think Abraham, there is some, like Don says there's some overlap there with Abraham, the Tower of Babel. But there's also a connection to the land and all that where is that, I think, connected to his father, if I remember what Jim wrote. It's been, like I said, it's been a while. But it's a pretty interesting book. The Jim Long, Blood Brother, The History of Israel's Enemy.
So I've got a follow-up question to that's coupled with this. So now the Tower of Babel, the people who were working on it, or the people of the land, their language, I'm going to use the word confounded. Their speech was...
Well, the word was confused there with the word brick, and its mirror reversal is confused. That which they used bricks to build this with, its mirror reversal created, was part of the confusion.
Okay, so most of the time when that's taught, it's taught that the languages were changed of many different types of people. First of all, is that correct on what happened?
I was listening to a teaching on that very subject by a rabbi, and he brought out, and like I said, this has been probably about a year ago when I was listening to this, and I don't remember which rabbi. It's not the fact that he and is the way he confused the languages. He was talking about a physical thing happened. See, my understanding of the language was what we would say Hebrew today, or it was Ivri that was mostly spoken, the Shemite language. And so what confused, and this happens today because he was explaining it in a today sense as well. The confusion is in our hearing. The rabbi was talking about that with that language. What happened is God blocked certain, I don't know how he put it, like audible things from words that they could only hear. It changed how they heard the word. And every language today has that exact same thing. So the reason why we struggle with understanding other languages is because the way that the individuals that God created hears the language, it becomes confusing because we can't hear it in its originality. And there's this rabbi was talking about how all that ties into what happened at Babel. He confused the hearing of the words, and every individual, there was a different confusing. And so they would hear different. Like today, we might hear someone say, you speak Mandarin or Spanish or Portuguese. And each one of those is an aspect of the original, but our hearing is blocked to be able to hear it in its pure form. So therefore it comes confused. I'm probably made that muddy water, but it was a really interesting teaching.
Well,
on physically how God confused the languages and how it physically actually happened. Other than just creating languages, he confused the hearing.
Okay.
So they couldn't hear the one language that was there. They no longer could hear it, but they would hear other languages because certain aspects of that one language, its audibility was blocked. So you couldn't hear it. And you heard something else. It's really an interesting, I wish I could remember that rabbi's teaching on, because it was really a good teaching on the physical aspect of the confusing of languages and what actually goes on in our ears and in our mind when we hear it.
So the third part of this question is, did that only happen to those that were working on the Tower of Babel?
Now, that's a good question. I really don't have an answer for that.
Bob, you got any?
But those people were scattered across the earth, and they took that confusion with them where they went. And so the languages that people begin to understand settled together. Like we speak English, some people speak, Japanese, and the nations began to then. I'm just speaking from my own knowledge of things, that the nations would then be developed based upon the people's languages coming together, that this people had this particular way of, speaking, and everybody else in that group spoke that way. So that nation developed in that, whether it be German, whether it be Japanese. I don't know. That's, from what I've learned, that seems plausible, but the answer to that, I don't know 100% because I hadn't gone that far in my studies, but that is a good question.
The conversation was about Abraham not being involved in the construction of the Tower of Babel, and therefore his language and the Hebrew language was not confounded.
No, it's my understanding from my teachers, my Orthodox Jewish teachers that I have studied under. Hebrew is the mother tongue. And the reason why it is the mother tongue of the earth is because contained within the language, it is considered a Lashon Kodesh. It's a holy language because there is no foul words within the Hebrew language. To have a foul word, a curse word, or what we call a dirty word in Hebrew, it has to be mixed with another language. But in Hebrew alone, by itself, in its purity, there is no foul or dirty language at all. It's pure. And that was taught to me by my rabbis.
Okay. Okay. So, any thoughts, Bob? You want to interject any thoughts on this, or you just?
And that was by my rabbi that taught me Hebrew, by the way, when I was studying with him. And he was a Hungarian Jew.
I just know that there's the 70 faces of Torah, so I'm not contradicting anything else. I'm just saying
Right.
there are many different theories out there.
Well, yeah,
And
there's
then-
70 faces of Torah for the 70 nations, which are 70 languages,
No, I
or
mean
something like that.
even within the rabbis, even within the rabbinic word, it's more of a cliche that there's 70 faces of language. Amongst the rabbis, there'll be many different opinions. So what's being presented here would be a legitimate way of looking at it. There's other rabbis that might have other ideas,
Right.
and they wouldn't necessarily argue with each other. They would just present different ideas. So I'm not.
Right.
Yeah. There's just not. Yeah. So what
I'm
Terry
just
was.
presenting the one that my rabbi taught me.
Yes. And
How's that?
that's very good. Yes.
Yeah, Pesach used to say. I remember he was talking one time about two people was discussing Torah, and one had this one view and another one had this other view, and so they both went to their teacher, and one gave his view and he said, "You're right," and the other one gave his view and he says, "Well, you're right." So
That is a strange thing that the non-Jewish people, as you get into your studies and learn more about the Jewish people, it's a weird thing when you can have three opinions and each one of them are correct, but yet three opinions that are different. And you will understand that once you start studying Torah, learning Torah, because Torah was given to Israel. It was given to Israel to interpret. God didn't interpret it for them. He gave them the Torah. He gave them the written and the oral Torah, which the oral is it's the explanation of the written. But when it comes to interpreting it, he gave Israel, his priests, the responsibility for that. And it's an amazing thing to learn. Some people will have a hard time with saying, well, this one says this one says that. And we're talking about something on the same subject. You look into the discussion of a rabbis on a subject pertaining to Israel, and they'll all three have different statements, but all three are correct. It takes some time to learn. See, this is the Torah language, which we were not given privy to learn or to be raised with. But once you are around enough of it and you get to witness it, it'll, as we'd say down here in the South, it'll blow your socks off.
do you think, and again, I ask this question, it's going to get myself in trouble. Do you think when people get streamlined on any one particular idea, boy, this is going to be tough to ask, but I'm going to ask it. Bob, you're going to want to jump in on this. Do you think that when people get one particular idea of religious streamline ideologies, boy, I'm using some big words now, of Torah, that anybody that's outside that ideology, they become judgmental of them and they want to judge them because they don't fit up to their standards of their idea of it? And maybe we should be more humble and accept the, you know what I'm talking about? Did I say that correctly? Because we live in a religious society, and if you're not part of that religious sect, you become judgmental of them. Come on, Bob. I've seen Bob.
Well, that's part of the way the way it's been explained to me about Babel, and it's presented as a theory, not as a hard fact. But the idea is that it's sort of like how the English, you might have different countries and different dialects that we don't necessarily understand each other, even though we're talking the same language. So it's not so much that the language itself changed, but rather people's understanding of what each other was saying. They were no longer able to work together. It may be that's like the rabbinic, the 70 faces. I'm taking that as using it as an example. That maybe the 70 faces idea is that the Jews have somehow been able to use all these different ideas, and they're able to operate with the different ideas at the same time, and they're able to cooperate with each other. But it becomes very difficult with ideology. People say this is my way or the highway, and they part away from each other, which is oftentimes the way that the world operates. People don't so that is another way of understanding how the nations divided up after after the tower.
I've seen a good example that I know everyone that's probably watches this or going to hear this has probably seen their little videos, but there's two guys from England that come over, been traveling around America and experiencing America and discussing the differences between, America and, the United States and the things that they have in Britain, whether it be food. And one of it was language. And there was a very comical, I mean, this is public, and it's the way they say things in England versus how we say things here. And one of the guys, when they were in this restaurant somewhere here in States, I think it's the first time they experienced Cracker Barrel down here in the South. They were sitting there and somebody come through and they had this really beautiful dog with them, and the one looks at looks at them, says, "Oh, what a beautiful dog. May I stroke your dog?" And they're like, "What?" Well, that's what they say over there. No, here we say pet. And so that language, see the language difference. And they've gone through, like with that video, and they talked about other words that they found that had cultural different meanings here, that we use the same words, but we use them culturally differently.
We could present a great case of that with Ronald here. Ronald,
exactly.
We'll unmute and let's talk about what I call biscuit. You call a.
Are you reading my mind?
There you go.
I think I was.
Well, in regard to the pet and stroke, we say pat, P-A-T. Can I pat your dog? Yeah, when I'll tell everybody, had a discussion a while back with Terry about biscuits and gravy that intrigued me. And he sent me recipes, but that was for the biscuits. And then I couldn't work it out. And then I got the recipes for the gravy, and I sent back one sentence. Over here, we would call that scones and white sauce.
See, that's it.
And it's not something we would do because we would put.
But scones are harder crusted than
on a scone, basically. And so I could never get my head around this biscuits and gravy until I discussed it with Terry. And I found it quite saddening because I was expecting something really different, something exotic.
Well, see that's
it is a delicacy here of the noble people of the South. Biscuits and gravy. It's a noble food.
Yeah, my right eye quivered. I mean, my right eye quivered, and let's see. I can't see. Yeah, so that's a classic example right there. Classic example.
Ronald, before Facebook and all that happened, there was Yahoo Chat, and that's where I started at, and I was in a Yahoo Chat group. And what's interesting, Ronald, is that there was a gal from Australia that was in there. And that was my handle, biscuits and gravy. I grew up, that was our family meal every Saturday morning. And so she asked me, she goes, "What is this?" So I sent her, I emailed her, got her email. I emailed her pictures of Cracker Barrel biscuits and gravy with the recipe on how to make the biscuits and just a milk gravy, and I got an email back in about a week going, "Why didn't we know about this?" It was there. So I've shared it with 2 Australians now. That's pretty cool.
You're changing the world one biscuit and gravy.
One biscuit at a time. Ron, we've got a saying down here. Somebody asks you, "How are you doing?" It's like a hair and a biscuit.
Oh yeah, we say that, but we don't like that.
No, I know it. Go ahead.
Are you saying?
But this is a good example of language of what Bob brought out.
Yes.
This is great example that we can be speaking the exact same English language between here in Australia or England, but yet our colloquialisms, our cultures may use the exact same words. Ronald has biscuits and cookies. They're actually opposites for us. Biscuits are floury like a scone, but not as hard. And cookies are more harder. They're chocolate chip cookies, Oreo cookies. But so we use the same wordings, but they're in almost mere opposites.
Well, you say crackers, we say dry biscuits.
Yeah.
And then we have sweet biscuits, which would be your Oreo. So, your wheat biscuit, your crackers are, just dry biscuits, and sweet biscuits are more dessert type.
So, what Bob brought out was really, really good in the fact that maybe some of them still spoke the same language, but the understanding of that language differed from one to another. And that brought even a confusion. I thought that was really good.
You just talk to a Scottish person.
Yeah, I know. I've been studying about Scottish stuff since I found out that on my father's side, my surname is Scottish.
And they're very hard to understand, even for me.
Oh, my favorite bro ranch is David Tennant, the 10th Doctor, and I followed him throughout his career in other areas. And one day they was interviewing him in a theater, and he was speaking in his native, just laid back Scottish. I thought I was going to have to get a translator. I couldn't understand a word he was saying.
I could understand him, but he certainly shocked me because I would never have dreamt that he was a Scottish.
Did you see that interview with him there in the theater? I'm just like, huh? He might as well have been speaking German to me.
I had a bit of on it, but I couldn't believe it either. It just shows what you could do with some training, doesn't it?
I mean, because I would have never thought that his native, personal, everyday language was that. Because I'd always watched him on Doctor Who as the 10th Doctor, or I watched him on Broadchurch as the detective, and his English was so proper.
And it was so neutral as well. Like he couldn't put a dialect to what part of English language it came from. It's just so pure. And then to hear him speak with that Scottish brogue, wow.
Yeah. So, Bob, you brought out a really good point.
Wasn't there a place, and this is just scratching a place in my brain here, that there was some type of war or separation going on in the Torah or the Tanakh, and they had everybody that come through the line say a certain word.
Oh, that's the difference between Ephraim and the other tribes.
So that
Ephraim cannot pronounce the letter Sheen.
Okay, is that what it was?
Yeah. The tribe of Ephraim cannot pronounce the letter Sheen, and they would have them say a specific word, and when they would say it, they knew that they were the tribe of Ephraim.
Okay. So I'm correct on that. That I was thinking I'd read something.
I think that happened to deal with, if I understand right from what the history I read, is that would happen at Sukkot when the nation would come together in Jerusalem.
Okay.
When the 12 tribes would come together in Jerusalem at Sukkot. I think that's where that's from, if my learning has a decent memory.
Okay. All right. Well, Terry, are we about to bring it to a close?
You said did we cover the question from last week?
It was the week before last, and it was that one about Abraham and
I got you.
Babylon. So that's what got us on this discussion here. So,
let's talk here just a wee bit. We discussed a couple of weeks ago about maybe going into somewhat a little bit of a study on Genesis. Is that what everybody was still wanting? Since we had some questions in that area a few weeks back. What direction do we want to go? Because I've completed this 4, and I was about to getting ready for looking into doing some unpacking Genesis.
Unless
do we still want to do that?
Unless Scotty's ready to do a lesson on what we discussed last week.
The week before last on charity, on
compassion.
Compassion. That's why I got that wrote right up there.
Yeah.
Cultivating compassion.
That would be a good study, Scotty.
You want to do that next week?
You want to have something there for because I'm glad you brought that up, because that really hit me. For several days that was on my mind after he said that.
I've got some really good stories on that I've kindly put together of real life cultivating compassion stories that's happened to people that I know of around me. Thomas is one. So I'll try to get Thomas here, and maybe he'll be able to talk too if he feels better. Get here, and he'll cry when he talks. So, he's like the rest of us. When you cultivate compassion, you cry a lot. I'll just be honest with you.
Let's go with that this next week.
Okay.
And from then on, do we want to get into somewhat of a study of Genesis a little bit, good. Starting with verse 1 and coming forward a little bit?
I think that'd be good.
Okay. I'll be getting, while you do that for next week, I'll be getting ready with some stuff.
Okay.
And if anybody has any other, questions or subjects they would like us to discuss, we don't always have to guide what we're going to teach, because we want to help people learn, just like we know some are learning and needing, wanting to know more and learn more. So if you have some subjects that you would like for us to cover, send Scotty some notes, and we'll take some time and prepare some stuff for areas, because sometimes we may not cover something that someone's looking into or wanting to know more about, and we don't know that unless you share that with us. So if you've got a subject that you're interested in wanting to know more about, and Scotty, we're probably going to put ourselves in some open can of worms and deep water in some areas, but that's okay. If people have got some genuine questions and wanting to learn and to grow, we're here to help you in that area. So
you know what to do when you open a can of worms, don't you?
You go fishing.
All right.
But yeah, send Scotty some some questions, some ideas, some things, maybe some concerns that you're wanting to learn about and subjects, and we'll work on that as well.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I'm going to bring us to a close, Terry. Let me look and make sure. Okay, so I'm going to bring us to a close. We appreciate everybody that spent time with us tonight. Those of you on Power Faith Radio, those of you that are watching on. A matter of fact, let me go over here and look. A matter of fact, I'll get you to do that, Ronald. Who's been with you over there on YouTube?
Linda, Emuella. Yep, that's it today.
Okay. Linda and Emuella, good to have y'all. Good to see you, Emuella.
There is 6 watching on my schedule here.
Okay, good deal. Everybody, we look forward to seeing you next week. Remember, you can send us an email. Just send that email to outreachnoah@gmail.com. Come visit us on our YouTube channel. Subscribe to that channel while you're over there. Hit that notification bell, and you'll be notified every time a new video goes up. We got some information about Power Faith Radio, and I'm going to give that to y'all maybe next week. It'll be completed. But we have somebody, I think, building us an app. So that's going to be pretty interesting.
Awesome.
So everybody, we'll see you next week.
See you later. Bye-bye. Have a good week.
And Veronica, next time you want to winter at the beach and then you get snow, tell us before you do, okay?
Snow cream.
I missed it. That's all I can say,
Okay. All right.